In today's video, we're going to be doing a sprinting analysis on Letsile Tebogo, really focusing on his block start and his acceleration from the Diamond League final yesterday in Rome. We're going to go ahead and hop right into the video. There was a great competition yesterday. If you watch this race here, many of these sprinters are some of the best sprinters in the world. Fernando Omanyala currently has the personal best. Obviously, Fred Curley, world champion. Christian Coleman is the current world champion for the 60. Akeem Blake. I mean, there's a lot of great guys here. Marcel Jacobs, obviously, another really good one. Seems like Letsile Tebogo is really starting to get a little bit more confidence in his running after just winning that gold medal and is really starting to open up, really looking great. This has been a great month for him. The month of August, obviously, beating Noah Lyles was a big thing. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. And before I get too much into the start, I do want to just talk about the race just because he ended up running a 987. And when you watch here at the end, we can kind of see he's kind of slowing down. I would say he maybe started to, I think he could have finished through a little bit harder in those last like 5 steps. But when really looking at it, like Fernando Omanyala and Marcel Jacobs right here, they're pretty close when Marcel Jacobs starts to ease up, right? Both of them are going pretty fast. Marcel Jacobs starts to ease up. So, I would compare those two races and say they're about the same. And just to give a context of where they're at, Omanyala was at a 10:08, where Marcel Jacobs ended up running 10:2. And that's really slowing down. So to me, because when you watch Letsile Tebogo, he didn't really slow down there at the end. He just didn't continue to accelerate. So the 987 might have gotten down to 982. The lowest to me would be 9.8. I don't think it would have beaten the current world lead with Kashane Thompson. I think I misspoke. I said that Omanyala has it. I think he ran 978 this year. Kashane Thompson has 977. But to now get into the block start, Letsile Tebogo, that's really what stands out is he's really quick out of the blocks. And we've been seeing that lately. You could see how quick he gets that first step down. Even if you compare that to like Christian Coleman, to me, he's got his foot down in a lot more stable position than Christian Coleman does. And part of that has to do with the reaction, obviously, but it also has to do with just the trajectory and what he's doing with the body. He's not too extra with the hands, with the arms. He's just going straight out, striking the ground, and has a fairly low heel position in comparison to some of these other guys. A little bit different with how little he does with the arms, a little bit different with how low he is with the heel. And it seems like that really helps him in being able to get out much more within those first few steps. We can see he does a great job, though, of pulling straight back with the hands. He's not going too wide at all with his arms. He's staying pretty much into perfect shoulder extension, right? Bringing that arm straight back. He does have a little bit of some sideways bob in the head, right? He's kind of moving the head side to side there, which the more I see these top sprinters, the more it is obvious that is almost something that you need to have as you are accelerating. It is a bit of a head bob to make it so you can get into your acceleration well. Also make it so you could shift your body weight side to side as well. So if you're not doing that, I do think that's something that you want to be able to implement. And so Christian Coleman is 5'8", and Letsile Tebogo is 6 foot. So when you compare the two, Christian Coleman has a little bit better acceleration being 5'8", but really for Letsile Tebogo, if he's able to just be in that same area, then it gives him a great advantage because of how strong of a finisher he is. Again, 6 foot's not necessarily super tall, but it is for his body and how he runs. It's important for him to have a good start and good acceleration. When we look at the Olympics, he does a good job even in that and being able to stay with Kashane Thompson, Fred Curley. If he's at 561, that's the same as where Noah Lyles was. It's a little bit slower than like Fred Curley, Kashane Thompson, but he's right there with all of these guys with their acceleration. 190 in the first 10 meters. And looking at it, he had amongst the worst reaction times. Actually, when looking at it too, so did Kashane Thompson, Noah Lyles. All of them had not great reaction time. Going back to the mechanics, what he does a good job of doing too is he just doesn't stay in that drive phase for too long. He's one of the first guys that are also out of his drive phase. You could see like Fred Curley is staying in the drive phase. Christian Coleman is trying to stay in his drive phase. Fernando Omanyala and Letsile Tebogo are both getting out of that drive phase very quickly. Fernando definitely needs to work a little bit more on his start, on his acceleration, but we can see that he does a really good job of just coming straight through. He might have come out a little bit early, could be an argument for that, but he gets into his top speed very effectively and then is obviously able to run by everybody. He's very comfortable. You could tell at his top speed, and we've seen him running the 200, the 400, that he could hold that for a long time. So he's just trying to get into that position, and then he really starts to be able to push it. And a lot of it, in my opinion, has to do with how he's just very straight back with his arms. We could also see that when his foot's striking the ground, he's doing a really good job of making it so he's landing with that foot coming back underneath him. He's not allowing that shin's not necessarily backwards, right? He's not at this angle, which I see a lot of people are at. He's more straight down underneath him. He's maybe a little bit out in front, maybe overreaching a little bit there, but obviously not anything that's impacting him. That right foot's turned out. I am a little bit more on the side of having one side that is more opened up is not a bad thing. I think when you have both sides that are pretty open, then that ends up potentially being a problem, just because that throws off the pelvis a little bit too much, makes it so you open up your hips and don't have as good of access to your hip flexors. But if you have one foot that's fairly straight ahead, looks like that's his left foot, and then his right foot's a little bit more turned out, I see a lot of guys that are able to do that and are able to perform at a high level. And in my opinion, it just has to do with their ability to access the rotation within their hips and within their spine a little bit better. Just what's important with that is you have to be able to maintain good extension within the shoulders. You can't have a limited action within the arms and also be turning out within the foot. And so it ends up being really important with this right side that he gets really good extension here to make it so then he can kind of compensate for that right foot turning out to the side, where now that left leg, he's able to pull straight back, or has that left foot coming more straight through, where his left arm is a little bit limited in the range, which ends up being perfect. So one of your arms is going to have a little bit more range. Another one of your arms is going to be not as much range, not as much rotation within the spine, but needs to be just very quick. You don't want to get stuck back behind you. And it also is important to be able to get a good reach out in front with that arm, or good rotation to make it so then we could set yourself up for foot strike on that side. So that right side foot strike wants to be able to have a good correlation with how that left arm would be swinging back in Letsile Tebogo's case. And then that right side, again, we get really good length, really good extension back behind. So that left foot's going to end up being back behind him a little bit more. And now it's just going to be really important to get that left leg to come through. You don't want to lose that left foot back behind. So you end up having a bit of a difference from one side to the other. And again, I don't think that that's good to have too much symmetry. I think there's some degree of asymmetry that's important. It's just if you are too asymmetrical, now you're putting yourself at risk for injuries and overuse and maybe inefficient movement, especially when you get into the further runs, the 200, the 400. But if you have the right amount of asymmetry with also performance, I think that that also helps you in being able to run faster. So hopefully that helps. If it does, you can check out some of the other videos that I have that talk about sprinting mechanics and some of the other top sprinters in the world. Like the video, subscribe to the channel as always, and we'll talk to you soon.